Joining me now is Senator Brian Schatz. He's a Democrat of Hawaii. Senator, first, I want to start with where you think we are as a nation right now in terms of this battle, what your reaction is in a state, Hawaii, that has been spared the worst of this, about this idea of like a May 1st reopening. Everyone's going to go out and, start economying again.
Well, Hawaii has so far been successful in flattening the curve, but we have a long way to go. And I think that, you hit the nail on the head in the sense that it was President Trump's ignoring of scientific expertise that got us into this situation in which we have mass preventable deaths. And he is going to cause additional mass preventable deaths if he ignores the expertise of the scientific community because he's got artificial deadlines or sort of personal or political impatience that is causing him to want to, get baseball back. I'd like to watch NBA basketball. I'd like to do a lot of things, but that's not the main thing. We have to beat this virus. And that's why we introduced legislation to do this the old-fashioned way, which would be to get some experts together and to make recommendations that could be adopted on a bipartisan basis. That's the way you get America back on track. And whether that happens in May, June, July, or some later date or in increments, I don't think we know the answer to that question. But the one thing we know is that we should not imperil either a potential economic recovery or people because the president is sort of losing interest in this.
You said this about the reporting about the president delaying those stimulus checks to get his name on it. You were getting your money late because the president thinks it is more important that his name be on the check than you were able to pay your bills on time. This is not a rhetorical flourish. The checks are delayed because Trump. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's really shocking that he's doing this. And look, I mean, I know he does everything in his own interest, but it is hard for me to believe that this is good politics for him because everybody knows or should know someone who is waiting on those dollars to hit their bank account so that they can make rent, so they can buy groceries, so they can buy prescription medicine, or they can pay their mortgage. And it is a matter of days for lots of people to determine whether or not they fall over the precipice. So the idea that he thinks he gets upside politically for putting his name in the memo, I think is a crazy misjudgment. And the idea that even his so-called base won't be irritated that they have to wait for money, I think is showing that this guy has lost his touch for what people actually care about. When the economy is good and people are just sort of have a general frustration with Washington, maybe he looks like the chaotic revolutionary that everybody wants. But now that there's a pandemic, this guy's scary and he very clearly doesn't care about you.
There are two provisions that have been reported on, the real estate provision and the tax code, and then another provision that Senator Sheldon Whitehouse sort of charged the Joint Committee of Taxation to look into. The Washington Post reported on that. That's the one where $90 billion just this year, most of it going to people making over $1 million. I mean, this is just appalling to me, if I can editorialize for a second. Obviously you supported this bill, as did almost essentially everyone, and I understand why they did, but did you realize this was happening?
No. And look, you passed the bill on a bipartisan basis because people were struggling and suffering and hospitals would have shut down and tens of millions of Americans and hundreds of thousands of people in Hawaii would have suffered even worse had we not passed the CARES Act. So I'm still standing by the yes vote. But there is some gross stuff in this last bill. And the fact that we tried to establish some oversight and the president issued a signing statement to say essentially that the president is not subject to oversight. And then he fires all of his inspector generals. I mean, there is no opportunity for graft that they will pass up. There is no opportunity to enrich their friends that they will ignore. And even in the midst of all of this suffering, they're still focused on sort of hooking up their buddies.
Final question to you. The small business PPP program ran out of money today. Republicans are saying it's your fault. It's Democrats in the Senate's fault. It's Nancy Pelosi's fault. You wouldn't just pass unanimous consent to a replenishment bill. What's your response to that?
Well, I think we should replenish that fund. It's a program that has had a clunky rollout, no doubt, but it's also keeping a lot of people on the payroll, which is part of the purpose of the CARES Act. The problem is that states and counties everywhere are about to go broke and make mass layoffs if we don't help them. And hospitals, in particular, are already starting layoffs across the country, and we don't have the resources for a massive national testing regime. And so what we said was, look, you've got $250 billion you want to replenish this fund with. We could do that. Let's also do these other things that everybody has agreed upon, and we'll be able to do a package on a bipartisan basis. Instead, Mitch McConnell did what he does, which is he sort of did a stunt on the Senate floor that was never designed to enact a law, but rather to sort of use it as a bludgeon against Democrats. Nobody has any patience for political stunts. People want results, and we're ready to do that as soon as we can.
Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii, thank you so much for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you.